Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Indah Naufal and my partner is Mikel Nabil Abraham. We will present to you about chapter 12. It's about interactive language teaching. Okay, the first page is telling us about sustaining interaction through group work. At the beginning of this chapter, it is described with a class atmosphere consisting of 15 students and an ESL community teacher who provides learning material for 10 minutes. But with heavy cognitive load and divided the class into several groups to discuss and answer the question. So the author wants us to knowing the atmosphere that doing the task by group work. And the next page is about the benefit. So group work generates interactive language. In so-called traditional language classes, the teacher talk is dominant. Teachers literature, explain grammar points, conduct drills, and at best lead whole class discussion in which each student might get a few seconds of a class period to talk. Group work helps to solve the problem of classes that are too large to offer many opportunity to speak. So the group works will give more chance to the student to speak more in the class. So they will be more active. And next is group works over and embracing effective climate. The second important advantage over by group work is the security of a smaller group of students, where each individual is not so starkly on public display, vulnerable to what the student may perceive as a criticism and rejection. And the next group works promotes learners' responsibility and autonomy. Group works places responsibility for action and progress upon each of the members of the group somewhat equally. It is difficult to hide in a small group, so all the students will contribute to doing something in their group. So when there is any discussion, I think each of the member of the group will talk. They will be share their opinion, so they will be more grow their mindset and take a lot of idea. And next is group work is a step toward individualizing instruction. Every student has a different unique ability. Usually, the most salient individual difference that you observe in their abilities to speak, listen, write, and reading ability. Small groups can help students with varying ability to accomplish separate goals. The teacher can recognize and capitalize upon other individual differences by careful selection of small groups and by minds trying different tasks to different groups. Okay, so this is the excuse for avoiding group work. The teacher is no longer in control of the class. There are several reasons why group work is less effective with notes if you A. Group work will be less effective because the number of groups will be large and difficult for the teacher to control. Teaching in classroom with institutions that require using traditional methods where the teacher acts fully. In such context, the teacher must be very clever to orchestrate successful small group work. But this is still a drawback rather than a reason to avoid group work. And students will use their native language. In ESL setting, where multiple number of languages are often represented in a single classroom, teachers can avoid the native language syndrome by placing students in heterogeneous language group. Next is student errors will be reinforced in small group. Errors are a necessary manifestation of interlanguage development, and we do well not to become obsessed with their contrast correction. Moreover, well-managed group works can encourage spontaneous peer feedback on errors within the small group itself. The next excuse is the teacher cannot monitor all groups at once, especially when you have lots of students in your class. Maybe will happen to you. Related to the issue of control is the sometimes misguided belief that a teacher should be iron on. everything a student says or does during class hour. And the last is some learners prefer to work alone. As an educator, we have to help our students to see language is for communicating with the people, whether through oral or written modes. And the more they engage in such face-to-face communication, the more their overall communicative competence will improve. So if you have your student, maybe your student have a kind of style studying like kinesthetic or visualizing or maybe auditory, you have to take a proper management to them so they can understand your class clearly and they will be happy. Okay, the next chapter is implementing group work in the classroom that will be explained by Mikel. Time is yours.
Thank you, Indah. Next is implementing group work in the classroom. There are some practical steps to take to carry out successful group work in the classroom. Selecting appropriate group techniques. In addition to group work, sometimes pair work is better applied to certain tasks, such as A. Practicing dialogues with a partner, B. Simple question and answer exercise, C. Performing certain meaningful substitution, D. Checking written work with each other, and etc. Pair work enables you want to engage study student in interactive or quasi-interactive communication for a short period with a minimum of logistical problem. Typical group tasks are defined and briefly characterized below. First, games. A games could be any activity that formalizes a technique into a unit that can be stored in some way. Several of the other group tasks outlined below could thus become games, guessing games, or common language classroom activity. Second is role play and simulation. Role play minimally involves giving a role to one or more members of a group and assigning an objective or purpose that participant must accomplish in pairs. For example, student A is an employer, student B is a prospective employee. The objective is for A to interview B. Third is drama. Drama is a more formalized form of role play or simulation, with a pre-planned storyline and script. Longer, more involved dramatic performances have been shown to have positive effect on language learning, but they are time-consuming and rarely can form part of a typical school curriculum. Fourth is project. If you were to adopt an environmental awareness theme in your class, for example, various small groups could each be doing different things. Group A, create an environmental bulletin board for the rest of the school. Group B, develops fact sheet. Group C, make a three-dimensional display. As a learner, get absorbed in purposeful project. Both assertive and productive language is used meaningfully. Fifth, interview. A popular activity to pair work, but also appropriate for group work. Interviews are useful at all levels of proficiency. At the lower levels, interview can be very structured both in terms of the information that is sought and the grammatical difficulty and variety. Sixth is brainstorming. Brainstorming is a technique whose purpose is to initiate some sort of thinking process. It gets student creative choices following without inevitably focusing on specific problems or decision or values. Brainstorming is often put to excellent use in preparing students to read a text, discuss a complex issue, or widen a topic. Brainstorming involves students in a rapid-fire, free association listing of concepts or ideas or facts or feelings relevant to some topic or context. 7. Information gap. Information gap activities include a tremendous variety of techniques in which the objective is to convey or to request information. The two focal characteristics of information gap techniques are A. Their primary attention to information and not to language form, and B. The accessibility of communicative and interaction to reach the objective. The information that students must seek can range from very simple to complex. At the beginning level, for example, each member of a small group could be given the objective of finding out from the others their birthday, address, favorite food, and etc. In intermediate group to collectively pull information about different occupation, necessary qualification, how long it takes to prepare for an occupation, and etc. In advanced classes, a small group decision on determining an author message, among many other possibilities, would be an information gap technique. 8. Jigsaw. Jigsaw techniques are a special form of information gap in which each member of a group is given some specific information and the goal is to pull all information to achieve some objective. Students enjoy this technique and almost always find it challenging. Then, problem solving and decision making. Problem solving group techniques focus on the group solution to a specific problem. They might or might not involve jigsaw characteristic, and the problem itself might be relatively simple, such as giving direction on a map, moderately complex, such as working out an itinerary from their train, plane, and bus schedule, or quite complex, such as solving out an itinerary from um, such as solving a mystery in a crime story or dealing with a political or moral dilemma. Once again, problem-solving techniques center student attention on meaningful cognitive challenge and not so much on grammatical or phonological form. Decision-making techniques are simply one kind of problem-solving where the ultimate goal is for students to make a decision. Then is opinion exchange. Opinion An opinion is usually a belief or feeling that might not be founded on empirical data or that others could plausibly take issue with. Sometimes opinions are appropriate, sometimes they are not, especially when the objective of a task is to deal more with facts. Moral, ethical, religious, and political issues are usually hot items for a classroom debates, arguments, and discussion. You play an important and sensitive role when you ask students to discuss their beliefs. Some beliefs are deeply ingrained from childhood, rearing, or religious training, among other factors. So, it is easy for a student to be offended by what another student say. In such exchange, do everything you can to assure everyone in your class that while there may be disagreement on issues, all opinions are to be valued, not scorned, and respected, not ridiculed. The next is planning group work. Your planning phase is, should include the following 7 rules for implementing a group technique, which is first, introduce the technique. The introduction may simple be a brief explanation. The introduction almost always should include statement of the ultimate purpose so that the student can apply all other direction to that objective. Second, justify the use of small groups for the technique. You may not need to do this all time with all your classes. But if you think your student have any doubt about the significance of the upcoming task, then tell them explicitly why the small group is important for accomplishing the task. Remind them that they will get an opportunity to practice certain language forms or function and that if they are reluctant to speak up in front of the whole class, now is the chance to do so in the security of small groups. Third is model the technique. For a new and potentially complex task, it never hurt to be too explicit in making sure students know what they are supposed to do. As a teacher, we have to do guidance of this discussion. Fourth is give explicit detailed instruction. If students have seen the purpose of the task and have had a chance to witness how their discussion might proceed, give them specific instruction on what they were asked to do. Fifth, a restatement of the purpose. Rules they are to follow, like don't show your schedule to anyone else in your group. Use if clauses, as in if I leave at 6:45 a.m., I will arrive at the airport at 7:25. A time frame, you have 10 minutes to complete the task. Six is divide the class into groups. To ensure participation or control, you may want to assign groups to account for one or two of the following personality types, cognitive style preferences, cognitive or developmental stage for children, interests, prior learning experience, target language goals. 7 is check for clarification. Before students start moving into their group, check to make sure they all understand their assignment. 8. Set the task in motion. This part should now be a simple matter of saying something like, okay, get into your group and get started right away on your task. Some facilitation may be necessary to ensure a smooth discussion. And the next chapter is monitoring the tasks. As an educator, the job now becomes one of facilitator and research. To carry out the role, we need to tread the fine line between inhabiting the group process and being helper or guide. The first few times we do group work, we may need to establish this sensitive role, letting students know we will available for help and that we may make a suggestion or two here and there to keep them on task, but that they are to carry out the task on their own. Debriefing. Debriefing include first reporting on task objective. This whole class process gives each group a chance to perceive difference and similarity in their work. Second, establishing effective support. A debriefing phase also serves the purpose of exploring the group process itself and of bringing the class back together as whole community learners. Example topic for discussion, action, and research. First, for group pair of work. Direct pairs to do the following. Look again at the lesson described at the beginning of the chapter. Pick it apart. List the things about it that were problematic and why they were problems. Can you put the lesson back together in a way that would promote successful group work? What would you do differently? Compare your finding with those of other peers. Second is individual works. What is control? Is control an issue for you? How might you do group work and still stay in control? Specifically, at what point should you rely on squeeze control? Third is group of pair work. What if, after all the precaution, students still use their native language in small groups? Ask pairs to brainstorm further solution and then discuss their feasibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, maybe we can conclude that group work is one of the effective ways to increase student activity. Besides that, the teacher must continue to monitor their student and make sure that all of them is active. So thank you for watching us and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.